Joining me right now, Republican strategist Bobby Eberle and Democratic strategist Nicole Brenner-Schmitz. Thank you both for being with us. Nicole, let me just start with you. What will Joe Biden's legacy be?
I mean, look, I think legacies change over a little bit of time, but certainly they want it to be that he got a lot of legislation that had been stalled done, the CHIPS Act, the infrastructure bill, and that he really helped build America up and out of a COVID crisis, created a lot of jobs, and created an infrastructure base across this country that Americans can really be having the benefit of in their communities for many years to come. And that's why we're seeing an urgency right now to just get the rest of those dollars out the door and into the communities.
Well, let me just follow up with you there, Nicole, because a lot of people are questioning the fact that money is just being kind of tossed out to different causes in these last days of his administration. One could argue that some will remember him most for this week's historic commutations and pardons. Some of them have been criticized on both sides of the aisle. In one case, you have a former judge who helped orchestrate a scheme to send children to for-profit jails and detention centers in exchange for kickbacks being pardoned. And President Biden has said it's about the power of second chances. Do you agree?
I think that he believes that very clearly. I think that if he feels and has seen the recommendations that this person has been rehabilitated, then that's his prerogative as president. I don't think this is what's going to be what people talk about and what is written in history books about the presidency in the long run. But it's certainly a topic right now that people are focused on. And we are a country of second chances. I don't know the exact details of that whole case, so I don't want to comment on that in particular.
Well, Bobby, I'm going to let you comment next. What do you think about these commutations and pardons?
Well, I think it's extreme to say the least. I mean, you have this one, the judge getting kickbacks totaling well over $1 million. You have a person that was put in prison that was found with tens of thousands of images of child pornography. He was pardoned. I mean, it's a legacy that is only part of it, actually. And I agree with Nicole. It's going to take some time to figure out what people really remember. But Joe Biden came in 2020 during a period of turmoil. Jimmy Carter came in with a period of turmoil only 2 years after Nixon resigned and Gerald Ford stepped in. They were both one-term presidents, and I think they're going to be put in the same kind of grouping as failed presidencies. I mean, the American people rejected not only the policies, but the perception of a president that was just not there, not capable of leading. And that's why you see Trump already overshadowing Biden on the world stage and here at home. He's kind of I know it's a honeymoon period, but he's enjoying rock star status wherever he goes. And I think that's part of the lack of power, the lack of presence of Joe Biden.
It's such an interesting time because on both sides of the aisle, extreme polarization. And pardon is the word. Bobby, the President-elect Trump has said one of his first official acts, the first hour he gets back in the White House, is to pardon the January 6 defendants. The DOJ says accepting a pardon is basically an admission of guilt. Does that jeopardize any of those defendants who have not been tried or are awaiting appeals?
No, I don't think so, because he's come on record and his supporters, his main spokespeople have said that, that Trump would focus on those people that were walking around the Capitol, that were basically targeted. And I think the information that came out from the Inspector General report adds some weight even more to the fact that the FBI was there in the dozens and people were just, many were innocent victims targeted by the DOJ. So, yes, it comes with that fact that when you do a pardon, your crimes are not, wiped away. You still have that on your record. You just don't face the sentence anymore or have to go into a sentence at all. So that will always be there. That will be a mark. But I think this is a good thing for Trump to do so they can move on and see that justice was not served the first time.
Nicole, after this volatile season of accusations and convictions and demonizing, it feels as though many Democrats are actually wanting to now respect the will of the majority of people who voted and find some common ground here with Republicans. Do you agree with that? And where do you see both parties working together?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I think that Democrats are well aware that the border and what's going on there is something that's important to Americans. We've seen, Congresswoman Veronica Escobar has put out a bipartisan bill. We've seen Democrats try to work with Republicans on this issue before, and I think they understand that it's a priority for Americans and want to do that. There's a DOGE caucus being formed. We're seeing there's one Democrat on it now. I believe there will be more. And I think a lot of that is they don't want to sit on the sidelines and watch that caucus. They need to be in there articulating and arguing for where they think there might be places to address some maybe extra layers of bureaucracy and situations that are frustrating to the American people in the government, but also make sure that we're fighting to ensure that we're not just slashing wholesale jobs that are important, that we're not doing things like privatizing the Postal Service, which has been thrown out as a possibility, which would hurt rural communities and possibly allow our ballots to be sold off to the highest bidder who wants to mail them out. So I think it's important for Democrats to continue to be part of these negotiations and realize that they're in the minority by a very slim margin in the House, but they still have a place in this government and that we need to be negotiating and working in the middle to get things done.
In the middle. Yeah, I want to give Bobby a chance to just respond very quickly. You mentioned a whole lot. You had a mouthful there, Nicole. But in terms of the economy and financial issues, Bobby, I think it's fascinating to see a lot of these CEOs and big tech names now coming and saying, I don't want to say kiss the ring, but just meeting with a willingness to discuss what the new administration wants to do. You watch some of our, cable networks here, there, everywhere, watching these big names sit down and say, we are so ready for this pro-corporation, pro-growth economy. What do you think that the American people can anticipate in the coming year?
Well, I think you nailed it, actually, pro-growth. I mean, there's going to be a lot of deregulation, a lot of opening up, a lot of removing of the censorship and the blocks that we saw on social media to where corporations, other entities can just expand and do the job and hire people. Many of these CEOs, they realize that, hey, Trump is here. We have to work with him. We are, despite, what may be our political leanings or our biases, our philosophy, we're business people. We are accountable to our shareholders. We're accountable to the people that buy our products or use our services. And so they want their businesses to succeed, and that's what they're doing. And I really agree a lot with what Nicole said about working together on some of these issues. I think that would be a good mark for the American people. It's one of the reasons I was glad. I mean, I was glad Trump won, obviously, but I was glad it was settled on on the election night, so that way people could move on. But I think with DOGE, with some taxes, like a no tax on tips and tax on Social Security, I think you could find agreement there. And as she said, on the border too, I think Republicans would really be willing to come together and talk about these other aspects of overall immigration reform if we address the seriousness of the border. And Democrats seemed willing to do that. And I think you could have some meaningful discussions and legislations and get back to a time on DOGE, on efficiency, where Democrats and Republicans can argue like they used to about should government handle this
right.
or not, and get some things done.
Well, it's just cool to hear Democrats and Republicans actually discussing things in a noble, kind fashion. And we can say, breaking news, we are not as divisive a country as we once were. People are working together. And thank you both, Bobby Eberle, Nicole Brenner-Schmitz. We appreciate your time, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.